If you're interested in how to create a very performant system that behaves really fast and can handle hundreds of millions of different things at the same time, this is the video for you. I have chosen to use Memcached because that will be probably the only way to solve it. Imagine that you want to have your friends' statuses changing constantly, and you have hundreds of thousands of friends and they have hundreds of thousands of friends, and all these have to happen at the same time. The only way you can solve this will be with an in-memory database like Memcached or Redis. For this video, I will be using Memcached. I will be using NodeJS because that's probably the fastest solution I could come up with to create the system, and Svelte, which is the front end that is playing fantastic. So what I will do is I will just show you Memcached. We're going to go from the beginning. We're going to install everything together, and I will walk you through the different things as we go along. The first thing, I'm going to check if Memcached is running in my computer. So I right click on the taskbar and then I go to Task Manager. Inside Services, I will try to click there and just press the letter M to see if I can spot Memcached. And I don't have this installed in my machine. So if you're in a Linux or Mac computer, you don't have to worry about this part, neither you Windows users. I'm just doing this to show you that I don't have the database running. So we're going to go and download it. We're going to go to Memcached. This is the website, memcached.org. And the documentation, I think it is terrible. The database is really good. It handles millions of things at the same time, but the docs are very bad. And that's why I wanted to make this tutorial, because it is worth knowing this database. So if you are using a Linux or a Mac computer, follow these instructions. In my case with Windows, there's no direct download from the page. So we just go to Memcached download for Windows, and let's see what we have. This is not the link. That's not the link because that's from the page I was already on. Let's check this link. This will do the job. I have here this version 1.4.4. If you are in a different OS, maybe you have a better version, but this will be okay. I will put a link to this page in the comments below. So just click on it, go ahead and download it. And once you have downloaded, just extract whatever is inside this folder. I will just double click on it and I will copy this folder and I will put this inside the C drive. You can put this anywhere you want. I prefer to do it under my C drive because it is my database. So we just paste it there. Memcached is already pasted there. Now I want you to make this mistake so you learn it. Open the command prompt, the terminal, by typing cmd. And we're going to go to the C drive. So we say cd C drive, cd memcached. And over here we have the file called memcached.exe. So the documentation says that you have to install it first. And when you install it, you will be able to run it, to start it. So we say memcached-d install. And this fails. It took me probably 15 minutes to figure out why. Just close it now and open the exact same command prompt as administrator. So now that you have this open as administrator, you will have to navigate to the cd C drive and then memcached. Same as before, you can see that we have the file there. So now we say memcached.exe with the flag dd, and then we say install. Once we have installed it, let's check what we have here in the task manager. I will try to search for Memcached. There's nothing about it. You can see it doesn't pop up. So what we do now, we run the exact same command, but we say start. As soon as we click enter, we should see the service running here. So let's check it. Memcached pop up there. and it is running. So now I will just minimize this task manager and my database is running. This window here is the command prompt, so I can just start the server. We can just close it. If you want to install, by the way, the database in the terminal, I'm not going to stop it, but I'm going to show you this here. As an administrator, in the same window that I was before, you can just do memcached.exe-d stop. So pretend that I was in the previous window, that will be the command. So now that we have that running, let's go and connect to it from a client. I'm going to go the primitive way so you understand all the commands. I will run putty. I'm not going to tell you how to install putty in your computer. I will just let you go ahead and download and install it. Linux, Mac people, you can just run the terminal and you have telnet already, and you will see how that's done. This part you don't have to do, it's just for you to see it. So when you are in putty, just type localhost and then the port will be 11211. That's the default port for Memcached, and this is going to be a telnet connection. So let's just open it, and this, what you see here, is the client connected to the database. So I will show you a few commands, not all of them. The database is very simple. It's just key value paired. So if you want to have, let's say, a key called name, you say set name, and let me just do this so it looks a little bit nicer for you, just like that. Set name. Then you have flags. Do not worry about this. Always set as 0 unless you are an expert in the database and you are an expert in your OS. That is not needed. So set name 0, that's the flag 0. Then the time to leave for this key. So if you just want this key to be available in the system for 10 seconds, you will do 10. If this key should be available for a minute, you will do 60 seconds. Everything is in seconds. If this was for an hour, you will do 3600. And after that time, the key will be deleted automatically. So for now, I will just have this key living for 10 seconds. And you need to tell putty how many characters the key contains. If the key, sorry, not the key, the value of the key. So if the name is the letter A, that will be 1 character because that's the letter A. If it was AB, that will be 2. And if you say ABC, that will be 3. If you have a JSON looking like object, then you will have to count the curly braces, you will have to count the white spaces, the colons, and so on. So we don't have to worry about that because in reality, you will never insert data in the database via a terminal like this. You will have an application that does it for you. And we will do that later in the video. So now that we have this understood, we say that the name is going to be just 1 character. I got this error because it took me too long to explain this. I will just do it again. Set name, the flag is 0, after 10 seconds and 1 character. And what I want to insert is the letter A. It says that it has been saved. If you want to see it, you can set get name, and then you have the letter A there. So let's do again a get name, and now it didn't show up anything. And that is because it took me more than 10 seconds to run the last get command. So the key was deleted automatically for me. I think it's worth telling you that the documentation for Memcached, if you go to wiki, and then we see a lot of configuration and commands, the documentation is very bad. So for example, this set command that we just ran, it doesn't tell you anything on how to run it. It just says it's the most common command. Great. So show me an example. It doesn't. But anyways, it tells you at least what you can use. You can set, you can add, replace. So you can just replace a value if that's what we want. You can append to the value, prepend. Let's do an append. I cannot walk you through all these functions because the video will be too long. So we just run an append. So we say set name. The flag is always 0. We're going to tell it to never die. It will always live as far as I'm running the server, so the time will be 0. That means to not expire. And 1 character, and that will be the letter A. So we say get name, we have the A. Now let's append. Append to the name 1 character, and then we have an error. And if you look at this documentation, it doesn't tell you about it. So let's see if we can say memcached append example. This is for PHP. Let's try this one here. Okay, if you want to append, you will tell the key, that's name, flags 0, expiry time, and the bytes. So the exact same thing, but just with append in front of it. So let's do that. I will get name again just to show you that the name is there. It's the letter A. Now we say append to the name, the flag 0. It will never expire, that's a 0. And I will append 1 byte, which will be the letter B. And then we say get name, and then we have A and B. So this is how it works, key value pairs. If you want to prepend, you will run the prepend command. If you want to delete, let's see, where's the delete here? Removes an item from the cache if it exists. And then you have increment and decrement. Let's do the delete and inc and dec. With this, I think we cover most of the database. It's very, very simple. So now let's say delete name. It has been deleted. We say get name. There's no name. You can see A and B is gone. Now let me show you the increment. And let me put this as the background, like so. So I'm going to set a counter. The flag is 0. It will never expire. It will be 1 byte. And I will set the number 0 to it. So now when I say get counter, you get number 0. Remember, all this will happen via NodeJS. So this is just for you to understand the database. And if you want to increment, we say inc r, increment, counter, and then we tell it with how many elements we want to increment. So if I say 1, now if I say get counter, we have the number 1. And it actually, before, it also replied with 1. So now we'll say increment, counter, and now I want to increment this by 9. So I already had a 1. 1 plus 9 should be 10. And therefore we get number 10. We say get counter, we get 10. If we want to decrement, and this, by the way, this could be used. Imagine that you want to know how many followers you have in your site, in your profile. You could just increment every time somebody subscribes to you, or you can decrement. So let's say that we say decrement counter by 2. You cannot use negative numbers. You cannot decrement by -2. The word decr, that sounded weird, but this decr function will decrement by 2. So let's hit enter. Now we have 8. So I think with this we cover most of the database. It is as simple as that. You can also run stats. Let's do that. Stats. And then you can see the statistics for the database. All these, you can read about it, but you can see how many misses I had when I was incrementing. I had 0. How many success increments took place? 2. Let me show you, for example, this. Misses, increment, 0. So now we'll say increment. I will just pretend that I have a variable called test by 1. I don't have the variable, right? So I click enter and then I say stats, and let's see what the hit misses shows. 1, right? Increment misses 1. I think you have the whole idea about the database. Add, replace, append, you can go and check this. So if you want to flush all, that will get rid of all the data in the database. That will be the last command probably. So we say flush all, and it says okay. So if we say get counter, we don't have a counter, right? It just doesn't show anything. All right, so now we're going to go to Node.js and we are going to connect to this server with Node. So let's go ahead and create a folder. I just went to VS Code. Let's create a folder. I will open a folder inside anywhere you want in your computer. I have my order, so it doesn't matter where I place it. I will call this folder Svelte Memcached. So this will be my solution that will allow me to connect Node.js to the database. So let's create a package.json. And what we need is some dependencies here. I'm not going to create any server for the moment. So I just want to connect to Memcached so you can see how that works. If you want to use Python, you use Python, PHP, you use PHP. But since this is a very, very fast system, I think this will be the fastest system you can come up with using Node.js and Memcached. And obviously, if you want to log in, you're not going to put your 100 million users in Memcached, right? This is for data that's dynamic changing, so you can do checks constantly against this data. I just have the dependency called Memcached version 2.2.2, save it, go to the terminal, and we are going to install it, Npm Install. We have this installed, now we can close it, and I'm just going to create a very simple file called app.js. You can also call it server, it doesn't matter, anything you want. And in this app.js, we're just going to use Memcached. So we say, let me just close this like so and like so. Great. So let's do a quick test. I'm going to NodeMon. If you don't know what I'm doing, you can watch my other videos about Node.js and stuff I have done. I will put the links in the console. So in the comment section. NodeMon app.js. For now, nothing is running. So I'm going to create a variable, call it Memcached, and this will require Memcached. Save it. No errors, that's good. Let's create a new variable with a small lowercase m, memcached equals, and then I will just create a new instance of this constructor memcached. And this is fairly simple. You just say that the database in localhost running on port 11.12.211 and save it. No errors so far. Now we can just do a quick test. Let's see what happens. I haven't tested this, but let's see if this port has a different number. Let's try that. You cannot spot any errors here, but that's why we tested it with the terminal with telnet before. Save it. And now we're going to just set a new value in the database, and we're going to read from the database. So we say memcached.set. And if you recall that you had the flag, you had the number of bytes, you had expiration time, this is what libraries are good for. They take care of a lot of stuff. So right now I'm just going to set a key called name, just like we did before. And what we do is we tell it in how many seconds this key should expire. I will just say 10 seconds. And afterwards we will get a function that will be the callback, in which we can get an error. Then we can test. If we have an error, we are going to console.log, just error, saving error, error, saving. So we know what it is, and then we're going to return. If things went okay, we're going to console.log, simply name saved. Save it. Now we don't see the name saved, we don't see the error, nothing is popping up. Let's save it again, nothing. So let's do a check, console.log, just a letter X. And we don't see the X, that means that we never get inside the set function. That's okay. So if you pay attention to this, we have the key called name in 10 seconds. But we forgot to tell what we want to insert inside the key name, and that's the second argument. This is how this library works. So I want the letter A to be inserted. So the name is A, it will last for 10 seconds, and then we get the callback. Now the name has been saved. We're going to read the name in the next function here. So we say memcached dot get if we want to read from it, right? And what we will do is we just want to read the key call name, and we will get a callback function, and this callback will just give us an error, or it will give us the data. The data will be whatever the key contains, in this case the name A. So let's check it again for the error. I will just copy and paste this. If there's an error reading, or else I will just console.log. Let's do this with a string literal backticket, name colon, and then I will just inject not name, because remember name was a variable that we use nowhere, it was just a key, but data will be what the name contains. So we say data, save it, and then we have the name has been saved and the name is A, and this will only last for 10 seconds. So if I comment this out and then I save again, now the name is undefined because 10 seconds passed since I explained that to you. So this is something that is not cached in the error. It says if the error console.log error reading, I don't want to see name undefined. I will want to see that there's an error reading the name. So I could just do an or. I say if there's an error, or if there's no data, let's do that. Then I will just say error reading. Save it, and now we have error reading. Let me comment this out again. Save it, and then we have the name. All right, so now this is how we connect Node.js to Memcached. I will show you the npm Memcached. I will just read a few things for you that are really good to know. That is how we install it, that's how we run it, and there's a lot of data here. This is something that will be very useful. Yeah. Memcached has the advantage that you can have multiple servers, a lot of servers running. So you can tell it here that you will pass a connection to Memcached. You can run these servers in several IPs. So that will be the first IP, that will be the default port. The second IP, that will be a different server running on the default port. And this will be the third IP running, that will be another server running on this port. So all of them on the same port. You can also change the port. But you also have this nice number 1, 2, and 1. This means that the Memcached will count how many, let's say, fractions you have. You have 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 1 is 4. So this 2 means that 4, you have 4 in total, and this 2 is 50% of 4. That means that Memcached will set the load 50% of the times on this server, 25% of the times on that server, and 25% on this server. If this number here was a 1, then you would have 1, 1, 1. Then the load will be divided between 33%, 0.33, 33.33, and 33.33. So that is the way to have this Memcached split into servers. I think it's also worth mentioning that Memcached runs on all the cores in your operating system. So if you have 4 cores, 8 cores, then it will just run on all of them. And that makes the database extremely powerful. There are some options here. I'm not going to start reading this for you. And the API just tells you how you can get several keys if you want it. So it says here that get the value. Sorry, this is not several keys. That is something that has something to do with this cast. I don't want to get into that. You don't need it for this, but you can read about it. And here's how you can set. Set and get is the important thing. You can replace it. You can add it. And for sure, you can also increment here. If you want to increment foo by 10, you get the callback. If you want to decrement, you get the callback. If you want to delete, you get the callback. So it's extremely simple. So now that we have that in place, let's go back to VS Code and let's try to set up our database. I will just close the terminal for now. And this is where things get interesting, because one thing is showing you how you can set and get values from the database. Another thing is how you can connect to the database from Node and how you can connect to Node from Svelte, for example. But the key issue is how to structure the data. And I know this part is going to be a little bit boring for some of you, but if you want to become a developer and a coder, they have two very different functions. A coder, you can tell it to go and do the set and to do the get, and he or she can just go and do it. But a developer has to analyze the data, has to analyze the architecture of the system, has to come up with solutions. So I want to come up with something really simple. Imagine that you have a social network and your friends are going to be displayed on the page and they change the status constantly. If they change the status constantly and you have a relational database, you will have the issue that you will have to do joins over and over and over. So this will take a lot of power in your database. If you have a MongoDB database or a document database, then you will have repeated statuses for your friends. So you will have to propagate the status to every single instance of the friend. So if your friend has 1,000 friends, then you will have to write the status in all 1,000 friends. That will mean 1,000 updates. So if you think about this, none of these databases are good for the job. And that's why you need an in-memory database like Memcached. You can also use Redis, by the way. I'm going to make a video about Redis pretty soon. So now that you have this in your head, let's work around the solution. The solution could be that you have a key. Pretend that you are logged in, by the way. So you logged in and then you get the ID of the user. So you say user, that will be the key. I'm building the key here. Let me put a comment. We say that the user with ID 1, to simplify it, that's the key. And what you put in the value will be the IDs of your friends. So you can say that the ID 2, 3, and 4, those are your friends. So now we have the user ID 1, and then we can say friends, for example. I know that you're thinking, well, this could be JSON. Yes, it could. I just don't like JSON in this scenario because you have to save as many bits as you can in memory. So this will just be the best scenario. So I can just grab this as an array and then I can loop through it. You can also just say, well, how about if we just take this away and then we just save the numbers with a comma, and then when we take it out, we put it inside the array and then we just loop through it. You could also do that, but I may confuse you with that. So these are your friends. So now, who is user 1? Let's pretend that you have another key. You say that user 1 has an status. And the status is, for example, 1 being online or 0 being offline. So that could be a 1. And then you can say that user 2 also has an status, and the status is 0, and so on. So let me just give you one more example for user 3. That will be a 1. So now that you have this, this could be one approach. I haven't thought a lot about it, but that's what's sticking in my mind. This is what you could do. Since you are logged in, you can have a WebSocket open against Node.js, or you can have a server send event, and then every second, Node.js can talk to Memcached, and it can say, give me, remember you are logged in, so Node.js knows the user ID that you have in a session or via JSON Web Token. And then it says, user 1, give me the list of friends. This is what Node.js is doing. Memcached gives you this array. And now you look through each of these elements, and then you say for user with ID, and this will be 2. So for user with ID 2, give me the status, that will be the key. It gives you 0. You store this in the response, you don't send it just yet. Then you take number 3, user 3, the status is 1. You store this in the response, you don't send it, and then you do that with 4. So if you have 1,000 friends, this will happen 1,000 times. But that's fine. This is the best approach you can get to this solution. There's no better approach to this. Everything happens in RAM, everything is split into multiple cores, and everything is split into multiple servers. So I read somewhere that you can have 200,000 queries per second with Memcached in a decent normal computer. So if you have plenty of servers running on Azure or running on Google Cloud or Amazon, then you will handle hundreds of millions of statuses per minute. So that will be enough. So I hope that this makes some sense. Let's get to the application then with Node.js. So let's open the package.json, and we're going to create a simple server. It's going to be done with Express version 4.17, there. Let's open the terminal, kill this process by doing Ctrl+CC, and then we're going to Npm Install again. Okay, that's done. So now we can go to the app.js. This could be called server. We say nodemon app.js. And we're going to just close the terminal. The server is running in the background. We're going to create a variable for Express. So we're going to require Express. And then we're going to create an app variable in which we instantiate Express. Let's create now a listening, app.listen. We're going to listen to port 80, and then we're going to probably get an error if the port is being used. And I don't like to type this again, so we just copy the error and paste it. If we have an error, we are going to say error, server cannot listen. And if everything went fine, we're just going to console.log server listening. Save it, look at the terminal, the server is listening. So now I have this running, line of comment here. And this is very useful for me, so I get used to this. And what I will do is I will create a route now. And this route will just be the route that will send the statuses for my friends to whoever is logged in with a specific ID. So I will have to hard code the whole thing, but you are probably going to push more code to this application, and then you will have it fully running. So I'm going to create just a path, a route, and I will call it statuses. So we're going to get the statuses for the users who are in this database that belong to another user for the friends. You will see how I do that. So this will be the, app.get, that will be a get, statuses. I don't know if that's the plural for status, but I think you understand it. And then we're going to have here the callback with the regress. And what we will do here, we're just going to send address.send, and then we're going to send fairly simple the letter X. Save it. And now we're going to connect, and this is how you should develop professionally. Open Postman. Don't get into a lot of complex layout. Now it's taking a little bit of time to open it. Give me just a second. And when you have Postman open, we're going to point to localhost / the route call statuses. And now we have this error. Let me see. This should be a get because the route is a get. And now we have the letter X popping up there. So this is correct. The route is working fine. Now we're going to do, before we connect to this part, let's pretend that the user that is logged in is user with ID 1. So we're going to hard code that. We say let user logged equals 1. So you fully understand this. And now we're going to put in the Memcached database, we're going to put this key. So we're going to say that the user 1 has the friends 2, 3, and 4. So you're going to see how I do that. So I take the, let's put a comment here in which we say populate database. Some people call it seeding the database, right? So we're going to seed the database. And what we're going to do is memcached.set, as we did before. Remember, we create a key. The key is going to be called user, then the ID 1, so we just do 1. You could also just inject the 1 in there, but I don't want to do it, to keep it as light as possible. And then we have friends. That will be the first argument. The second argument is an array of friends, but Memcached doesn't know about data types. For Memcached, everything is just a string, or if you put a number, it will be an integer, so you can increment and decrement, but that's about it. So in this array, this 1 is friends with 2 and 3. Let's keep it like that. Now, for how long is this going to be the list of friends? Pretend that you're using a social network and somebody friends you, unfriends you, and so on. Let's say that they can be your friends or not friends for a lapse of 1 hour, so 3,600 seconds. And then we have the function. By the way, I have not tried this with an arrow function, therefore I'm writing the function. And then we will have the error. Let me copy the if statement in the error, paste it, and then let me copy the OK, which is that one, paste it. So if there's an error, error saving, error seeding the database, or else we can say friends saved. So let's check the terminal and save it again. Save it again. So now we have the friends saved. If I save it again, it's just being overwritten this key. So user 1 has these friends. We can do a check. We can go to PuTTY. If you don't know what it contains, you can say get user 1 friends with columns in between. And then you get 2 and 3. So those are the friends. Now each friend has a status. So I will hardcode also the statuses for each friend. I will populate that as well. I will copy and paste. So I will say that user 2 has a status. And the status is, let's do a 1. So user 2 is online. And this will be user 2 status saved. Save it. That was saved. And then I will do the exact same thing. And the way you are seeing this before that, it's because Node.js runs asynchronously. So this took less time than that command to run. Therefore, you see it in a different order. And then we're going to set the status of 3. That will be 0. And this will be 3 saved. So now we have the list of friends and the statuses done. I think it's time for us to go to Svelte, and I hope you're enjoying the video and you will subscribe and put some comments about it. Like it, please. It really helps me a lot. So let me do this like so. Subscribe, please. Very primitive, right? No fancy stuff here. So let's go to Svelte now. Don't say it. All right, so I just opened a new VS Code window. Let's open a folder. You can do this any way you want. I will actually do it in the same folder I was using before. You can create a whole new project if that is your wish. And this was called Svelte Memcached. And then I will just create a folder and I will call it front end. So I will do my front end in here. All right, so can I just rename this? I don't like this front end. Let's leave it as front end, it doesn't matter. So let's go to front end, and then what I will do is I will just install Svelte, npx, I don't remember the whole command, I think it's called digit, and then it's something like Svelte.js. I'm trying to memorize this just to impress you, I'm not copying this from anywhere. And then I think it was called template. And then you can put here the folder path, but I want to put it inside the front end. So we just do a dot. Hopefully that's running. Oh yes, great. So now I have Svelte downloaded. I'm going to install it, Npm Install. And once this is installed, I can run it. It's fairly straightforward. So let me do this like that. And then we will do npm run dev, press enter, and we have an Svelte application running on this path. Copy the path. You can also just click on it, but I want to open this in Chrome in the incognito window, which is there, and I will just paste it right there. So I will just do this side by side now. Move it here and move it there. Great. So this is my Svelte application running. Let's go to File, and I think I will go full screen on this one, like so. And this is staying at the top. If you have several screens, you won't have this issue, but I have it. So now we're going to just go to the SRC. I have videos about Svelte. If you don't know what I'm doing, you can just go and check them. I'm not going to teach you Svelte in this video. I'm just going to walk you through how I do it with Memcached and NodeJS. I will just delete this, and I will delete everything inside the main. I will put the video links in the comment section, and all these also deleted. Fairly simple. Save it. And now I will just go right ahead to the core of the application. So we'll pretend that I have a list of friends, and these friends need to change their status. I will just hard code it first of all. So I will say let friends equals an array of friends. And this array of friends will be, they will need to have the status, the name, and so on. So let me start building the ID for the friend, and that will be individual JSON objects. So I will have an ID for friend. Remember 2, I am number 1. My friends are 2, 3, and so on. I mean, I am ID 1, right? The name will be B, and we don't care about anything else. We could care about the status though. That will be nice, but maybe we want the status in a different array. So we can just inject the statuses from the backend into the different array. So we can have a let friends status equals, and then we have the array with the friends statuses. So we could just have a JSON object that says the ID 2 has the status being 1 online, or this could be the active, and then ID 3 will be probably unactive. We could do this. I don't know which solution I will be using, but we will discover it. ID 2, and then ID 3 will be the letter C. So I'm going to display my friends right here. So what I do in the main, I will create an each loop, and then I will close it. And I'm going to loop through each of my friends. So we say for each friends as friend, I will just create a div, and then I will put my friend in that div. But since this is component based, I will create a friend component to make it professional. So we'll say friend dot svelte. And this component will have the exact same structure as this is app.svelte. So I copy and paste it. And this is my friend, so I delete it. And then I delete this, and this will be a section. And that will be also a section. I will just have here the letter X. And every time I am in the loop, in the app.svelte, I am going to create a friend. So I'm going to import friend from friend.svelte. Nothing popping up. Let's see if this is working fine. It seems like it. So now I'm going to just create here a friend, which is the variable I created up there. I'm using it down here. I have 2 X's because I have 2 friends. So this is how I got Svelte to work. But now I need to put this in an external place. So app has access to the client-side database as well as friend, so we can flip the status as we pleased. So this data will be shared, and let me take a second to see what will be the best case for this scenario. So I will pause the video, think about it, and I'll get back to you right away. All right, it didn't take me that long. It took me less than a minute to think about the solution that I, for now, think is the best one. So we'll have an active here being 1 and an active being 0. If you have comments, please let me know about it. Maybe you have a better solution than mine. So this is going to change with data that will come from the server, this and that. So I'm thinking that the server will send me an array with IDs and the statuses. So I will find the match based on the ID, and then I will change the status based on the ID that came from the server. So to do this, let's put this data in an external store. An store is just a database that will contain the data for the client side for Svelte. I will just call it data.js. And inside this data.js, I'm going to say import, curly braces, writable from, and then in between double quotes or single quotes Svelte/store. And then we're going to create a variable. We say export. That means that someone else can write to it. That's what we say export. Let friends equals, and then we say writable again. And writable means that this variable can be overwritten by an external resource. And this means that the external resource has access to the variable. And then I will just copy this array of friends and paste it inside the parentheses of the writable function. Save it. And now this is no longer going to be used. So I will just import import the variable called friends from the data.js file. And this will be /. Now that I have that done, I can just refer to friends, which is there, but this will fail. And that's because this friends is coming from the store, and therefore you need to put the $sign in front of it. And now you have it running. So this is working fine. Now each of the friends have an status and so on. I will keep it simple, or as simple as possible. So we just say that the app.svelte will pass this to this friend, the ID of the friend that I want to display right there. So this friend is going to be expecting to get the ID this component is saying, okay, you pass me the ID and I will make sure that I know how I can create myself. That's basically what I want to do. So I will say export, so you can pass me something, and let ID. That means pass me the ID, and then I will manage the rest. So this application, the app.svelte, says, well, I will pass you the ID, and the ID that I want to pass you is coming from friend.id. Save it. If I want to see this ID, I can just curly brace it and say ID. And now my friend 2 and 3 are being rendered. But I don't have the name of the friend, so that's why this application said, pass me the ID, I will handle the rest. So now it says, for the name, I will create a variable, and I will point to this data, to this ID, and extract the name out of it. But we don't have access to data.js just yet, so we say import, curly brace, friends, from /data.js. So now we have access to friends. And then we can say, well, since we have access to friends, and that is coming from an external resource, we have to do $sign in front of it. So we say friends.find, and then this find is going to grab each of the friends as an object. So we can say that this will be an item. We can just call it an item. And the callback will return something to the application. So we will say if the item.id, which is this ID, if that item.id equals the same ID that was injected to this friend 2 or 3, and you cannot see the whole thing, so we just move this for a second there. If the item ID equals the ID, if so, this will return you the JSON object, so all of it, but we only want the name, therefore we say we want the name. This should give us the name, so we can say ID, curly braced, name. Now we have B and C, right? So I'm going to continue doing this like so. Now the exact same thing will happen for the status. So we create a name, let status or active, whatever you want to call it. We just copy this. We say go to friends, find a match. If the friend that is selected, the ID of it is the exact same ID, get the active out of it. Active. Now we can just show here active. So 1 and 0. So let's do a simple color for it, or a circle. You can do whatever you want. I will just keep it really simple. If it is active, I will say that this section changes the color. So this is what I want to do. Style equals color green, for example. Now they are both green, but this should be based on the active. So we'll do a ternary in here, delete the color green, ternary, and then I will say if active equals 1, if true, this should be green, or else this should be just, green like so. If true, you will get green, or else we will get just black. Save it. And now you have that B is active and C is inactive. So this is how we display the status of the friends. If you're thinking that this is working with 2, this will work with over, I really don't know. I tried with 5 million elements being built by Svelte and nothing crashed, nothing lagged. It was working perfectly as expected. So don't expect any surprises there. Right, so we have this done. Now we need to make sure that these green or black, they are reactive. At the moment, I don't think they are, and then I will prove this to you. I'm going to show you how I do this. In the main, I'm just going to create a div, and inside this div, I'm just going to say json.stringify, and then I will stringify friends. So you can see what I have out here. right? These are the friends stringified. I'm going to flip 1 to 0 and 0 to 1 after 5 seconds. To do that, I'm going to create a set timeout, and I will create just an arrow function here after 5,000 milliseconds, which is 5 seconds. And what I will do is I will say friends, position of 0, dot, this will be position of 0, dot active will be the opposite of 1, so it will be 0. And then I will just duplicate this line, and then I will say for friends 1 active equals 1. Save it. Let's pay attention to this part of the page. 5 seconds later, it did change. Now B should be black, but it is not, and C should be green, but it is not, because they are not reactive. They are not being computed. So what you do to solve it is fairly simple. You say if this variable, the active, has to change according to this data store, instead of saying let, you delete it, and then you say $: save it, and that should be the job. That should do it. Let's check it. Flipped, correct. So now you can imagine that with Node.js, we are going to set these values and the application should be done. So I'm going to take a break. I'll get back to you right away. All right, so this is so far becoming a long video, but it is worth watching all of it because you are learning so many things that are going to be used in companies. This, maybe the example is very, very short, but the whole concept can be applied to any huge enterprise that you might come up with. So the last part of it, let's connect to Node.js, to the route that we created before, and let's test it. So I'm going to go to the Node.js application, which is here. Right now, I'm just going to put this there. All right. So this was populating the database, and this is running, and we have a path here that says statuses, and then we will get the letter X. This is what I want to point from Svelte now. So I will go to Svelte, and not each friend does not need to connect to the backend, because if you have 1,000 friends, you will have 1,000 connections. The brain of the system of Svelte, which is app, will be connecting to the backend. So this was already tested. Just leave it there. Let's do this. Let's create a const. Let's call it getData, and this will be a function, and we will get the callback. Now this function is just going to connect one time to the server for now. So we are going to say that this is an async. Let's see, async. Sorry, this is a callback. So async has to be placed there. Then we're going to say that we have a connection to the server. We're going to await, and we're just going to simply connect to fetch, where we say HTTP. This is because I have to do this because Svelte is running on a different VS Code application and running on a different port. So I just want to make sure that I'm pointing to localhost correctly. So I'm going to point to localhost port 80 by default /statuses. And then I will say that I will get the response, and the response will await the connection and the text that the response is sending. Right now the response just sends the letter X, and therefore it is text. And once we get the response, what we will do is we will just alert just for testing the response. Save it and test it. Now, this function is not being triggered. We're not calling it from anywhere. So let's call it. So we just say get data, just like so. Save. It did change here, but nothing popped up. If we inspect this window, we can see that we have an error. it says Node.js doesn't allow me to connect from port 5000 to port 80. This is called the course, and you have to access control allow origin. There are many ways to do this. You can use an npm package to solve it. I don't like doing that. So I will just go to my Node application. And what I will do is I will say these statuses res.header, headers, or header, let's see, header. I'm not sure about the function. And then I will say access, let me just put this a little bit there. Access dash control dash allow origin. The second argument is who is allowed to access this application, everybody. I think that solves it. Let's save it. And let's reload this page. Now we have the letter X, right? So instead of having the letter X, now we need to create a server send event, which is the last part of the topic. And with the server send event, we will be able to just have this sending the statuses constantly. So let's go to the Svelte part. And instead of just getting the data, which is okay, we can do that, we're just going to create inside the get data, we're just going to delete this, and we're going to create a server send event right in here. So let's create a variable, let's call it event source, and then we're going to create a new event source. And we have to point to the path that we wanted to connect to. In this case, HTTP, localhost, statuses. So this will be my server side send event. And then what I will just create an event listener. So we say event.source.add event listener. And then I will just, the default event listener is the message. This is not something I am inventing. This is called message, and that means that if the server pushes a message to the client, it will come in this message function parameter. And then you have the callback, which you could expect an error. So we just call it E. Sorry, this is not the error, this is the data. It comes in the event. And obviously a try catch, because things could get wrong here. You should always use a try catch. Okay, you could get an error. I'm not going to, hopefully not going to see the error. So now I will just see whatever I get back. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to just for now console.log whatever the server send me back. So in the event, in the server send event, I want to show the data that I get back. Let's save it. Let me open the terminal. And now we have this issue. The server says the browser got a response, but it says that it is not an event stream, and therefore it aborted the connection. All right. So let me go to the server now, and we have to be able to stream this event. So this is what we do. We allow this to be connected from anywhere, that's fine. And then we need a few more header variables. So we're not going to use the header anymore, we're going to set it. So we say that the response, we set the access control allow origin. Then we say res.set. We're going to set the content type. This can also be lowercase, it doesn't really matter as far as I know. And this will be a text event stream. That's, I think the error was telling me that. So let's see the error. Yeah, text event stream. So you can see I'm using this right in there. And then I will also say it the res.set, and this is also very important. You have to have the connection, and the connection has to be kept alive. So therefore you say keep dash alive. So now you say that you will be streaming data through the connection. The connection will not be closed. We will keep it alive. And always remember, do not cache anything because the data will be changing, the status will change. So we say that the cache control will be set to no-cache. I think this will do. And one trick, you cannot send because the word send in Node.js with Express will actually send the letter X and it will close the connection, but you want to keep it alive. Therefore, you just write the letter X. So save it. I will do one more test. Let's inspect it. No, that's mobile. Okay, I already got the data in here. No, that was the div that we see in there. And in the console, let's reload the page. Let's see what we have here. WebSocket connection, WS error, connection refused. WebSocket. I'm not sure I created a WebSocket here. And on this port, let me see. Okay. Oh yeah, this is nothing to do with me. This has something to do with the server from Svelte. So let me just close it, close this, and go to the front end again for Svelte. Save it again, inspect it. Yeah, I will have to pause the video again because this was not expected and this has nothing to do with my application. This has something to do with the npm run dev. All right, so it took me quite a while to debug that, but that's because when I look at the terminal, it showed me this in the development tools in the console, and it was the first time I was seeing this, so I got quite confused about it. But it has nothing to do with the application as I thought. It is something to do with the WebSocket for Svelte or some library internally, Reload.js. So getting back to track, I will show you how I get the letter X. This is going to give me an error, obviously, because I'm going to try to pass the letter X, but it's not going to be passed because this is not how server send events work. If you want to send some data back, let me just rerun this. So if I reload the page and then I inspect the element, you will see that in the console, we don't get the letter X. Do not mind this anymore. So if we want to see the letter X in there, this is what we need to do. We need to make sure that we send the correct format. And this is the correct way to send data via a SSE or server send event. If you want to send the letter X, you just say that you want to write, you don't need this part here, but you just say write, and then you do data, column, and then the letter X, and you must end up with this syntax. It must be done. So \n, \n. I will delete this now, save it. I'm going to reload the page, inspect the element, and now you see the letter X in the console. So this has to happen several times, and this is the beauty of SSEs. If you want this to happen concurrently, like many times, we're going to just create a set interval around this data X. Set interval, so we do this many times a minute, and in this set interval, we're going to create a function, and this function will run, let's say, every 10 times a second. This will be every 100 milliseconds. This will be every 10 milliseconds. So every 100 milliseconds, that will be 10 times. Yes, I think that's correct. And then I will just put the write inside here. Let's do this every second for now. 60 seconds. Sorry, I think I'm tired. So every second will be 1000. Let's try. Save it. I'm going to open the page. Where are you page? Here. Oh, here. I'm going to open the console and we're going to reload. Now you can see that it was already sending data. 2, 3, 3, 4 every second. So this is what we wanted to get to. So instead of sending an X every second, we want to send the status of our friends every second. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to move this a little bit there so it doesn't bother us. And now what we're going to say is we're going to check, we're going to connect to the database Memcached, and we're going to get the values. So I would like to get the status for my user 2 status. That's what I want. Imagine we're in a loop. I don't want to do the loop for now. I just want to fetch this. So I will copy this set, and every second before I write the data, I am going to get the data. So be careful with the callback. So I will do it in this way. Inside the interval, I will get. I would like to get the user 2 status. We no longer need these variables there. This should give me the status of user 2, and it should just say that user 2 status is whatever we get in the status. If you look at this example, this is how we got the data. So we had the error and the data. You know what? Copy this example, that's better. And then we just replace it with this one there. So we don't have any big errors. And we're not going to get the name. We're going to say user 2 status. We will get the data, and then we're just going to print the user 2 status. So I will send the response after I got the status. So I create some extra lines, and then I move this inside the callback. Be careful with this. This will give you a lot of issues if you don't know how to control callbacks. Quick overview. We set the interval every second. We get the status for user 2. Once the callback executes with the data, with the status, we will console.log it, and we will just send the letter X for now. Save it. Let's do a new test. Refresh the page and look at the terminal. Now we know that the user 2 has a status of 1. This can happen if you have a distributed system. You can do this hundreds of thousands of times per second. The computer will not feel it at all because you're using the best approach to it. So now let me just close this, and we don't want to send the letter X only. We would like to send, I know that you are thinking JSON, but JSON has an overhead of data. Then you will have to send ID 1, in this case 2, and then you will have to send the status or active being whatever the data contains, right? So 1 or 0. If you think in this way, look at this. You're passing this and that too many times for no reason. So I think the best approach to this is just to pass a simple array with tuples. So the ID 2 has a status 0 or 1. Imagine that we also got the status for 3. So we will say user 3 has a status of 0. So if you pass this, you can see how little data we are passing to the client. And that's what I'm thinking in this video tutorial. How to make things extremely powerful, fast, short, no boilerplate. So what I will do is I will just say for user 2, I will send the data, which is the status. You can call this variable here a status if that's what we want, right? Status. And I will just inject this in a string literal, the status. Save it. Let's check the console again. Let's see if we're getting something out of it. Now you're going to see that nothing really pops here. We have an error in the connection statuses, and that's because server-side events only know about text and text only, and this here is actually behaving as a weird string array basically. So what we're going to say is we're going to say json.stringify, and this should be a function, by the way. So I'm going to do this. I'll have to delete this part. So that's the data, and then inside the string literal json.stringify, and then I'm going to pass here the array that I told you about. So in this case, let's do just 2, 0 for now. Save it. Let's see if the inspect shows something. Nope, another bug. Reload. Not showing that correctly. Let me fix it. Alright, so looking at the code, I think that the bug is in this data, because I'm having the status as the callback, and it says if there's no data, do that, and obviously doing that is never going to write the data in the correct format. So I will just reload, show you the bug again, and then you can see there's no data. So I will do what I think is the bug, status, save it, inspect it. And now we can see number 1 being passed. And the thing I just said before about the object being passed here, I was confused. I'm not passing an object, this is just hard-coded strings, right? If this was an array that I had in a variable up here, like an array of something, of statuses, for example, then I will need to stringify it, but I'm just hard-coding it. So I will say that the data for user 2 has an status, and the status is going to be, let me see, if I do this, I will inject the status right in there. Save it, inspect, reload. Now you can see the status pops up. 2-1, this is so annoying. 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. So I'm going to go to the terminal telnet, and I will flip this status. I will do it right there, and I will move this there. So imagine that your friend says set. This will be a set. Yeah, it's going to update it actually. So we just set user 2 status flag 0. It will never expire. It will have 1 byte, and now the status is going to be 0. As you can see, it automatically sends the 0 to Svelte, to the console in this case. So now the last part of it, we need to just make sure that the status is reactive. To do this, we go to Svelte, and this is the data that we're getting back. We know that this is an array because we can log it. I'm just going to convert this into an array. So we say let statuses equals json.parse convert it data, and then I will console.log the status. Save it, check, not this, but check the page, and now you can see that this is the array I'm getting 2-1. So I'm going to hard code the last part. I know that this is for user 2, which is this one, so that's in position 0. So I will say friends position 0. If you had more time, if I wanted to do a loop, I could loop through the friends and find the match, as I told you before. But for now, friends position 0, which is this element, active, will be whatever the status contains. And remember that the status is actually looking like this, 2-1, right? So 2 is the ID that you will find the match with, and 1 is the status that you want to set it with. So the status position of 0, 1. This is just index space, 0 and 1. So I will save it. Let's see if this works. That is giving me the status. Let me open the page. For some reason it disappeared. Oh, it's right there. Okay, so this will be the last check. So this is my system running right there. I'm fetching the status for my friend through the application, and that's just faking it. The friend logs out, so it connects to a route, and it says user 2 status 001, and now user 2 is out of the system, and you can see how it turned black. If we do set user 2 status 0011, now it's online. The video has turned to be quite long, but I think I gave you a lot of good tips about how to connect Svelte with NodeJS and Memcached. It's not looking good, but the amount of knowledge you received through the video is really, really professional. So a quick, as I usually do in my videos, a quick recap. I think it's worth recapping on it. We created the app.js. We connect to Memcached on this port. Memcached can be distributed. You can put it in as many servers as you want. It will load balance automatically, and it will sync automatically. Then we have callbacks to set. We create a server send event in which we set the headers, and then we loop every second to check for the statuses. We send the data via this protocol. On the client side, for Svelte, we create the Svelte application. The heart of it, we just run this function, and this function just keeps an open connection to the server. When the server sends data, it talks to the store called friends, which is this store, and updates the status. Now on the friend side, active is reactive, meaning that if something changes in the active in the store here, this variable will change automatically. And via this ternary, we flip the color from black to green. I hope you like the video. I hope you learn many things about it. This is the way Facebook does it. Twitter, obviously with a lot more servers, but this is the principle of how they control the data. Thank you for watching it, and goodbye.